The strain that Summer Inman was under as a result of a marriage that had been shattered by broken promises and love that had not been realized before it ended was tough for her to endure. For a very long time, she was forced to suffer under the stress that was present. When she was carrying the weight of the responsibilities that she was responsible for, she had a difficult time figuring out how to deal with the strain. When she felt the need to express herself, she would use her notebook as a way of self-expression, and she would write down her feelings in the nooks and crannies of the journal. A glimpse into the depths of her mental pain, as well as the haunting questions that plagued her mind that was restless, may be found in her writings, which were awful and full of agony. Her writings offer a glimpse into the depths of her mental suffering. Her works were loaded with anguish and apprehension, and they were filled with terrible things. Her heart was filled with a great deal of pain as she wrote with it. Her compositions were characterized by a great quantity of anguish and depression, which was a defining characteristic of her works. There exists a connection between the narrative of Summer's life and the narrative of the Inman family, who are deeply anchored in the fabric of the Tabernacle of Faith Church, which serves as a beacon of hope in the small American town of Logan, Ohio. Summer's life story is connected to the Inman family's tale. A parallel can be drawn between the trip of the Inman family and that of Summer. It is impossible to separate the narrative of Summer's existence from the journey that the Inman family has been on from the beginning. There is a crucial connecting aspect that is shared by the life narrative of Summer and the story of the Inman family. Both of these stories are deeply interwoven with one another. Bill and Sandra Inman, Will Inman's parents, are both devoted members of the organization that they attend. Will Inman was brought into the world by his parents, who are both loyal members of the organization. As a native of the United States, Will Inman was born. He chose the name Will Inman for his baby, which was inspired by both of his parents. In the midst of the impassioned prayers and hymns that reverberated throughout the walls of the church, the ceremony began with the beginning of the service and continued until the end of the service. It was held in the middle of the service. They eventually tied the knot in marriage, surrounded by solemn vows and the anticipation of their families due to the fact that they were wedded to one another. This occurred after what seemed like a lifetime had passed. The lives of Will and Summer became increasingly intertwined over time, and in the end the two of them decided to get married. It was Will's parents that requested that Summer and Will make their presence known within the family home, despite the fact that Summer and Will had fallen in love at a young age. Because of this, they found themselves in a perilous situation in which they were unable to escape the possession of their parents. This prevented them from escaping the situation. It was something that Will's parents insisted on having, and that was the fact that they were present in the house that they shared with all of their children. Even though Summer was having a difficult time adjusting to her new responsibilities as a wife and mother, she desired for freedom that was much more intense than she could have ever dreamed. This was despite the fact that she was having a difficult time adjusting to herself. However, she came to the realization that she was expected to live up to the expectations of her husband's family for the rest of her life. This obligation would be with her until the end of her life. When it came to this particular matter, she was able to accept it. When Summer was navigating the turbulent waters of Will's dependence on his father and the limiting confines of their shared dwelling, the harsh reality of her marriage brought her dreams crashing down on her. This occurred at a time when Summer was also navigating the tumultuous waters of her marriage. When she was confronted with the hard realities of her marriage, her hopes came crashing down. During this time, Summer was also having a difficult time dealing with the limitations that come with living in a shared residence with her brother and sister. During the time that this was going on, it was easy to hear the reverberation. Throughout the course of his life, Bill Inman had a remarkable change, making the transition from being a devoted member of the church to being an influential preacher in his own right. It was throughout the course of his life that he underwent this transition. The passage of time, which was responsible for the manufacture of this transformation, was the cause of its occurrence. His fiery sermons and prophetic visions enabled him to command the attention of the congregation, which ultimately led to the foundation of his own church, which was distinct from the Tabernacle of Faith organization. He finally established his own church as a result of his ability to command the attention of the congregation. Following that, he proceeded to build his very own church from the ground up. In contrast, the family's newly discovered excitement for spirituality was masked by the mounting financial difficulties that they were facing at the time. This was the case because the family was still struggling financially. It was becoming increasingly difficult for them to deal with their position. Because of the fact that the family was going through a great lot of trouble, we found ourselves in this situation. This was the circumstance that we found ourselves in. In order to improve their ability to provide for their family, the Inman family was compelled to relocate on many occasions. This was necessary because of the precarious nature of their financial situation. Taking this action was done with the intention of enhancing their capacity to provide for their family. Consequently, as a consequence of this, they were taken out of their regular surroundings and placed in a circumstance that was completely dissimilar to anything that they had ever experienced in the past. Because of the events that had occurred in the past, this transpired as a consequence of those events. They were unable to satisfy their financial responsibilities despite the fact that they were making every attempt to do so. Eventually, they came to the realization that they were caught in a vicious circle of instability. The fact that they were exerting such a great deal of effort did not prevent them from gaining this understanding. They arrived at this realization in spite of the fact that they were making all effort necessary to attain success in their endeavors. Due to the fact that this work was already dangerous, the false fundraising strategy that Bill planned to utilize for Mercy Ranch made it even more dangerous than it had been in the past. This was despite the fact that the labor was already deadly. A state of deception and desperation was imposed upon the family as a result of the lies that violated the promise of providing a safe haven for those who were in need of assistance. This was a consequence of the breaking of the promise that was made. Because the promise was broken, this condition was left for the family to handle on their own. This was done because the promise was broken. The family is currently in the difficult circumstance that they are in when they are in this predicament as a direct consequence of the lies that were told before they were in this predicament. Over the course of all of this volatility, Summer's displeasure with her marriage was gradually starting to become increasingly obvious beneath the surface. She was becoming increasingly dissatisfied with the ability of Will and his family to exert control over their lives, which was one of the elements that contributed to her rising dissatisfaction. Will and his family were able to exert control over their lives. This was one of the circumstances that had a role in her developing a sense of dissatisfaction. One of the things that led to her developing dissatisfaction with her life was the fact that this was one of the factors. Because of her encounters with Adam Peters, who was working as a laborer on the Inman farm, she had the chance to experience a fleeting gleam of freedom and friendship. This was made possible by the fact that she was able to become friends with Adam Peters. This opportunity, however, was only available for a short time. Because of the relationships she had with Adam Peters, she was able to gain this understanding from those experiences. The flashing of each of these was scarcely noticeable for a brief length of time, during which the time period in question was brief. Furthermore, the contradictions that had been brought to light in the past with relation to her marriage were brought to even greater attention as a result of these ties. It has been brought to light in the past that these inconsistencies were an issue. She made the bold decision to file for divorce from her husband in order to struggle against the crushing grasp that Will and his parents had over her. Will's parents were her parents. Because of this, she was able to take action against the challenging circumstances. The strain that had been building up between Summer and the Inman family reached a point where it could no longer be contained. This was due to the fact that this had made it impossible to contain the tension. The point at which it was no longer possible to keep the tension under control was reached at this time. Will's escalating attempts to establish his dominance and control over her every move were the distinguishing elements of the terrible struggle that was ignited by her proclamation of independence, which served as the spark that lit the disastrous war. Will's declaration of independence incited the fight that led to the devastating war. It was Will's attempts to assert his dominance and control over her every action that ultimately led to the turmoil of the situation. The key elements that led to the dispute that ensued were Will's efforts to exert his dominance and control over her every conduct. This confrontation was the result of Will's efforts. Summer discovered that she was unable to escape the nightmare that she was going through and that she had no ability to pull herself away from it. In addition to Will's increasingly erratic behavior, Summer's own growing anxiety about the situation was a contributing factor in the event that occurred. Will's actions came out to be the most important component. Under no circumstances was Summer able to get away from the horror that she was experiencing. The unfortunate occurrence that ultimately resulted in her passing was the fact that she was held captive by unknown attackers. She found herself in the middle of a terrifying experience that rocked the community to its very core as a direct result of this. This finally led to the unfortunate scenario that occurred. The knowledge surrounding the circumstances that led up to Summer's captivity remained hidden in secret after the kidnapping of Summer, which resulted in a path of loss and sorrow being left behind. Summer's imprisonment was a result of the fact that she was held captive. In spite of the fact that the hunt for Summer became more wide and suspicion started to surface, the information on the information continued to be classified as a mystery. In spite of the fact that the search for Summer became more intensive, this was the situation that occurred. It was the burden of examination that caused the facade of piety that the Inman family presented to the public to fall apart, thereby exposing the dark underbelly of their broken relationships and the hopes that they had long since given up. To give the impression that they were members of a particular religious tradition, the Inman family presented themselves. The investigation took a turbulent turn as a result of the kidnapping of Summer, which led to the discovery of unexpected disclosures and the casting of suspicion on persons who were closest to Summer. Summer was kidnapped because of the circumstances surrounding her disappearance. It was because of this that the research was able to uncover unexpected facts that had not been known about before. His actions, which included contesting child support payments and attempting to obtain custody of the children, caused eyebrows to be raised and painted a picture of a man who was completely preoccupied with acquiring wealth and maintaining control over other people. One of the outcomes of his efforts was the acquisition of custody of the children. In the composition of Will Inman's acts, both of these components were included into the general structure of the composition. As more information regarding the crime was unearthed, the authorities started to concentrate their attention on the Inman family. The Inman family's outward appearance of respectability started to fall apart as the investigation continued because of the weight of suspicion that was following them. In light of the fact that the facts that surrounded the scenario were growing increasingly suspicious, this transpired as a consequence. The sophisticated web of dishonesty started to unravel at this time, and as it did so, it revealed a labyrinth of lies and betrayal that had been concealed beneath the surface as it began to unravel. At this very moment, the dishonesty started to fall apart for the very first time. When Sandra Inman, who was under increasing pressure from law enforcement, revealed to the horrible reality that was behind Summer's kidnapping, the situation took a dramatic and positive turn for the better. This was a significant development regarding the scenario. This was a shift in the right direction that was not only significant but also positive. Because of this, a significant step forward was taken in the investigation of the case. Because of this, the circumstance became more favorable than it had been previously. This was an improvement above the previous state. Instantly, when she came to the realization that she was the one who was responsible for the crime, she instantly removed the garment of innocence that had been placed over her head. Specifically, she was the one who was accountable for the criminal act. As a consequence of this, the general public was apprised of the tragic reality regarding a family that had been torn apart by greed and desperation. This was brought to the attention of the general public. The implications that were brought about by the legal repercussions, which included the imposition of life sentences on Bill and Will Inman for the heinous murders that they perpetrated, caused the town to be rattled to its very foundations. This was one of the aspects that caused the community to be shook to its very core. This result has come about as a direct consequence of the legal implications that were endured throughout the course of the situation. They were forced to face the grave consequences that arose from their treachery, which ultimately led to the loss of their reputations, which they had previously held in high respect. They were forced to address the consequences because they were forced to do so. Nevertheless, the truth remains that they were compelled to face these consequences as a direct result of their behavior, which could not be excused in any way. As a consequence of the choices that they chose in regard to the event, they were obligated to cope with the repercussions to the utmost extent feasible. During the time that Sandra Inman was awaiting her punishment and the decision on whether or not she would be eligible for parole, her future remained uncertain. The imposition of her punishment was scheduled to take place within a predetermined amount of time. She was also waiting for additional time as she was waiting for the chance of being granted parole. During this time, she was sitting tight. The fact that she made the decision to take responsibility for her role in the kidnapping of Summer was a glimmer of hope in the midst of the darkness. Nonetheless, the scars that were caused by their acts would continue to be visible for a significant amount of time after the courtroom drama had come to an end. As the dust began to settle on the events that had taken place in the courtroom, the community was seeking to come to terms with the awful truth of the ramifications that the calamity had brought about. This occurred at the same time that the dust was beginning to settle. It was for the purpose of this cautionary tale about the destructive power of lying and treachery that the connections that existed inside the Inman family, which had previously been disguised from the public eye, were brought to light for everyone to observe. This was done so that everyone may receive the opportunity to learn from the experience. The consequence of this was that each and every one of these relationships was brought to the attention of each and every person. Due to the fact that this took place, each and every one of us was given the opportunity to benefit from some kind of educational experience. The tale of Summer Inman serves as a sad reminder of the precarious nature of human connections and the depths of depravity that some individuals are capable of falling towards. This is a reminder that can be found in the story. Her story serves as a powerful and unsettling reminder of both of these phenomena. Throughout the entirety of the narrative of the novel, this reminder is present at all significant moments. This serves as a reminder that is both disturbing and thought-provoking at some point in time, and it serves as a reminder. This particular reminder is just one of several that may be discovered to be dispersed across the entirety of the narrative, from the very beginning to the very end. The narrative starts with the endearing appearance of a family that resides in a little hamlet, and it closes with the harsh reality of being kidnapped and misled while being held captive. A cautionary tale about the darkness that lies beneath the surface, this story is about the danger. The story is meant to serve as a cautionary tale about the ominous undercurrents that are present beneath the surface. She uses the incident that she tells as an illustration to serve as a cautionary tale about the possible dangers that lie beneath the surface. Something that is particularly important to keep in mind is the fact that her story is meant to serve as a cautionary tale about the evil that hides behind the surface. This is something that should be kept in mind. We are reminded of the need of remaining vigilant and standing together in the face of challenges as a result of the fact that we have been provided with the opportunity to reflect on the events that have taken place during the past few days. The relevance of these ideas is brought home by the bravery that Summer exhibited in the face of injustice, as well as by the untimely passing of Summer, which serves as a reminder of such significance. It is important to note that Summer's passing not only serves as a heartbreaking reminder of the significance of justice and accountability in our communities, but it also serves as a reminder of the worth of these conceptual frameworks. As we continue to be in the midst of this horrible catastrophe, let us continue to be unwavering in our dedication to the pursuit of the truth and the pursuit of justice for those who have been affected by the disaster. For the purpose of ensuring that Summer's legacy will continue to serve as a source of inspiration and fortitude in the face of unexplained issues, it is possible for us to work together in order to make this happen. Consequently, this will guarantee that Summer's legacy will continue to serve as a source of motivation and perseverance for future generations. We are thankful for this vacation, and we are also thankful for the fact that you are going with us. Both of these things are reasons for which we are thankful. We would like to extend an invitation to you in the event that you would like to continue to be a part of our community and subscribe to our channel. We hope that you will please accept this request. This is a request that we would appreciate it if you could respect. You will be able to keep yourself up to date on further fascinating articles and changes that have taken place as a result of this opportunity. Thank you for watching. I recommend our other crime videos.